IV drug user, arrest record, liar, volatile, depressed, jobless, homeless. I'll ask you to think about those words and think about the images that immediately come to your mind. What sort of person am I describing? What do they look like? What is their story? I'll ask you to hold that image for just a minute. Giving back, restaurateur, leader, growing, employer, financially stable. Think about those words. What sort of person comes to your mind? Who is that? What is their story? Those words could be used to describe my story. All of those words. Because they're all true. They're all a part of my story. And while they don't define me in total, they define what has brought me to this moment to be on the stage. I want to talk to you about the industry that I love. Love. The restaurant business. We have this amazing opportunity every night to have this intimate experience into your life. Your first date, your anniversary dinner, your getting together with old friends, your divorce party, the date you're not supposed to be on. We have the front row. We have the front row to this beautiful theater of wonderful food and wine and an enticing ambiance. And that's part of my industry. And I also work in an industry where every night we leave work and we drink ourselves into unconsciousness, we're addicted to drugs, and we're overdosing in record numbers. I work in an industry where when tragedy strikes in Charleston, the phones start ringing about the charity fundraiser that we're all going to come together to raise money for your charity. There's no more group of charitable people than chefs in this community that get asked to cook for your events. And right after those events, we have chefs that night after night, restaurant people night after night say, I'm not going to do it again tonight. I'm only going to have one. I'm not going to call the drug dealer. And night after night after night, they do it, and they can't stop. I work in an industry where recently, in recent years in Charleston, a farmer, their barn burned down, all the livestock killed. Within 48 hours, the Charleston restaurant community came together. We did a barn raising. We bought livestock. The farmer was restored. And I work in an industry where people drove home that night and died because they had had too much to drink. At a recent festival, very popular wine and food festival in the Southeast, 3 chefs under the age of 35 died of opiate addiction. And the next day in the paper, there wasn't one mention. The headline was about the bourbon tasting and the wine flight and where the after party was. I work in this industry that is filled with these charitable souls that are seriously addicted. There was a study done of the national workplace of drug use in all workplaces. The national average was 8.6%. Drug use in the restaurant industry is 19.1%. It's time we shake it up. In that same survey, they looked at alcoholism in the workplace, 6%. In the restaurant industry, 11.5%. It's time we shake it up. We all turn in nightly to all the chef celebrity shows, and we watch these guys with tattoos and they're rock stars, and they're dying. And they're walking out of their restaurants calling it stress. It's an industry that I love. It's an industry that's given me a life that I could have never possibly imagined. I want to talk to you about another word, sustainability. We all shop at our organic grocery stores. We want to know where our food is from. We want to make sure the animals were ethically raised. We live in Charleston. We want to talk about fishing in the right waters at the right time. And we don't talk about human sustainability. I work in an industry where when we all come to work every day, we talk about how many shots we did last night, and we high-five each other. But when our friend, who doesn't look so good anymore, who you can tell isn't making it on time, who you can tell is struggling, we're not an industry that stops and says, "Are you okay?" It's time we shake it up. Being sustainable means that we care about our people, and we have those conversations that are uncomfortable. We stop and we pause and we say, "Listen, I think you need help." It's time we shake it up. This is my friend Ben. Ben was a happy guy. Ben was a chef in Atlanta. I met 20 years ago when we were opening a restaurant. He was a blues guitar player. He always had a joke. He kind of reminded me of one of those guys in the Rat Pack. He always was having a good time. I had lost touch with Ben in recent years, and a mutual friend connected us. I was opening a restaurant, and I needed help. And they said, "You know, Ben has cleaned up his act." So Ben walked in the door. He said, "Hey, Steve." I said, "Hey, Ben." He said, "I've cleaned up my act." And I didn't want to shake it up and say, "Well, what does that mean?" Ben worked for 6 weeks. I never saw him take a drink. He worked 16 hours a day. Suddenly, Ben stopped showing up to work. We had put him up in a hotel room, and I went to that hotel room to talk to Ben because I was worried, and Ben wouldn't answer the door. A friend of mine said, "Steve, you should call the police." I knew the owner of the hotel. I didn't want to create a scene. I didn't want to shake it up. I didn't call the police. Ben committed suicide and shot himself. And I wish I had shaked it up. The picture on the right is Ben surrounded by 4 other chefs. 3 of those chefs were sober. I was there that night. I was sober. Something in Ben's ethos, something in the culture of our industry told him that he couldn't just reach out and say, "I'm struggling. I need a hand. Can you help?" It's time we shake it up. I came back to Charleston after calling Ben's mother and having to explain what had happened, and the story started to unfold. Ben had been in detox 6 different times. Ben didn't know how to ask for help. We have to shake it up. So from that perspective, with my friend Mickey Bass, a fellow restaurateur and sober person, we started a nonprofit called Ben's Friends. And we meet weekly. We meet weekly as a safe place for people that are having a problem with drinking. We meet weekly as a resource to get people into facilities, to offer mental help, to offer financial assistance. We meet weekly just to show people that you don't have to drink and be in the restaurant business. We started a year ago. There's a Ben's Friends in Raleigh. There's one in Atlanta. I get calls from all over the country, people reaching out saying, "I want to help. We have to do something." I love my industry. It's provided a life beyond anything I could ever imagine. But one thing I know is that you can be sober in the restaurant business, that I want to spread that message. I want to challenge the notion that you have to drink and do drugs in our industry, and I want to shake it up. Thank you very much.